What's up, everybody? Forgive my fuzzy beard. I just got out of the shower, and number one, I don't know how to grow a beard. Number two, I don't know how to groom a beard. So if you have any tips, let me know in the comments section, especially if you're one of those guys with like the cool kind of like, tough looking beard. I don't think I could ever pull it off, but I'm sure you know how to groom a beard. But I was in the shower, and as you know, there are two things that the shower is best for. You can say this with me if you'd like. Number one, drinking a beer. Drinking a beer in the shower is the best thing ever. Number two, thinking about YouTube videos you want to make. I'm sure that's a universal thought out there. So I'm in the shower. This is something that's bothered me for a long time, and I wanted to get it off my very masculine chest. And that's how I feel about Warhammer, mostly the lore and the stylistic choices I've been making over the last, 20 years or whatever it's been. Quick side note to establish my street cred as a Warhammer fan. 1987, I was like 13. I bought the very first Rogue Trader Space Marine box set, which had, I don't remember, 70 or 60 so Marines in it. It was set during the Horus Heresy because that way they could reuse the models. All you had to do was paint them differently, which is a brilliant idea if you think about it. I still have most of those original minis, and I still have the original rule books as well, albeit in a tattered form, stored right down there. I was going to get them, but they're too fragile. I don't want to screw them up even more. And then I bought the what they called back then Epic Scale box set, which I believe was just called Space Marine. It was an Epic Scale, or what they call Legion Imperialis scale set with I don't remember how many little tiny Space Marines and tanks in it. And then I bought, of course, Adeptus Titanicus, which back then is what they call, what do they call Adeptus Titanicus now? Whatever, anyway, the Titan stuff now. And back then, way smaller, way less detailed, but hell of a lot of fun. Played that for several years. I skipped, as soon as I discovered girls, I skipped mostly toys and mostly hobby stuff because, girls are amazing. Through the 2000s, so I always kept up with the lore. I'd always keep up with the game and the stuff they were putting out, but I never bought any more. Didn't play for a long time. But 2012, 2013, I started getting interested in it again. Started reading the novels, and so at minimum, you could say I've been very familiar with the lore and the stylistic comings and goings, and even the gameplay and rules changes and stuff that Games Workshop has put out over the last at least 15 years. So I'm not saying I'm an expert at all in the lore, but I'm definitely very, very familiar. I also watch some great lore channels like Arbit or Ian and people like that who do great work putting all that together. So anyway, I thought it would be kind of interesting to spout off, being that this is a podcast. The problem that I have with the lore and the stylistic choices now, I will pick up a novel. I've read probably 50 or so now, and I put down probably just as many. And I'll read it mostly for three reasons. Number one, if there's space combat, because space combat is pacing-wise and stylistically-wise kind of more like the tabletop game. Why we like the tabletop game. One person moves, the other person moves. It's slow, but then there's moments of excitement. Kind of like a soccer game. I'm sorry, Europeans and other people in the rest of the world. We say soccer over here. I mean football over there. American football, which is 4 hours or whatever, is a sludge. Here, soccer is an hour and a half. You have one person makes a move, another, there's a counter move, and then suddenly great excitement. It's a very, very good sport. Also, people don't get hurt as much. So space battles. Two, for discussions of Primarchs, like a lot of you. A Primarch, if you don't know, is kind of like a demigod who rules a chapter or a group of what you might be familiar with, Space Marines, right? So it's like a 9-foot tall person who has sometimes powers and stuff and wings and stuff. Very cool. I like reading discussions about them, or actual discussions, meaning literal discussions of their abilities or their powers or their look or something. While it's fun to talk about the shadowy kind of like history of the Primarchs, there was one there and two disappeared and he was green and da-da-da-da, to hear them actually physically described and stuff is fun. That's why superheroes are popular. It's just a fun thing, right? And number three would be discussions of Titans, Titan battles and stuff like that. That's obviously, I'm into giant robots on this channel, so that's obviously a very, very exciting thing for me. But also, it doesn't need to be nonstop excitement. It's the discussion of these things that is exciting. You know, your imagination fires off when you think of 100-foot tall, or however tall it's been established these days that Titans are. Still impressive in height, but not the 300 feet that we heard described or whatever before. Anyway, so if it doesn't really have those three things, I also like hearing about the Sisters of Silence and stuff, but their religious fanaticism, whether misplaced or not, is completely boring. I don't like any type of religious discussion really at all. It's not my thing. You know, there's some fun there with the establish a history or whatever. Custodes, boring as hell. Just another, it's kind of like a more boring Primarch. But anyway, so if it doesn't have those things that I particularly don't like, I tend to put it down. Now, if it does have those things, here's how I read a novel or watch a piece of animation or whatever. I don't even know, because Games Workshop still doesn't allow people to make animations unless they own it or something. So anyway, when I've seen them, if it doesn't have those three things, I basically skip all the crap at the first about how dark the universe is. I know it's established in every single novel. That's your thing. You have to tell us how scary everything is. I get it. Number two, I skip the index or whatever at the beginning with all the listing of all the characters in the book. Again, not important to me, and it's 3 pages of stuff, and also you're kind of spoiling it in a way. Just forget that part. And then I start reading, and as soon as it comes to combat, especially between Space Marines and like aliens, or you know, orcs and Space Marines, or Eldar and orcs or whatever, excuse me, I go combat, skip the page, skip. I just kind of don't even speed read it. You know how you can just see the words like cracked a skull in his fist, and you go, okay, I was still going. Split somebody in half with his chainsaw. Okay. So you keep going. As soon as it's the end of the battle, that's usually the end of a chapter or something like that. I read the next part. Hopefully by that point, they're talking about space battles or the strategies behind space battles, the epicness of space battles, like the sheer numbers of, you know, how many people were on a ship or whatever, how large the ship is, imagination firing type things, discussions about a Primarch or a Primarch talking to somebody, that kind of literal Primarch stuff, or of course Titans. Dreadnoughts, not so much. They're not that big. And not Knights, because Knights have that hokey kind of thou thus thing, which is so cringy. But anyway, Titans, big giant things, completely unrealistic things walking through the environment, especially the Imperator Titans, which is just completely ridiculously huge and just a lot of fun to read about. So if it doesn't have that stuff, I kind of read it. And these are pulp novels. If you don't know what a pulp novel is, back in the 20s, 30s, 40s, whatever, and even today, they had pulp novels and magazines. They'd be 10 cents. You would read it. It'd be about like a detective finding a body and a woman seduces him. It's real pulpy, kind of easy to read. It's not really super exciting. It's more about just consuming it quick. It's kind of like, cartoons or something. It's just easy and fun. You just have a good time with it. Sure, there's some problematic areas of a lot of them and stuff like that that's changed over time, but you know, it's just pulp, silly fun. And the reason I never really put Warhammer lore books into a higher bracket, up there with one of my favorite books of all time, Salt, which of course is nonfiction, but it's about salt. You know, I like not super granular. There is a balance there, but discussions. You tell me the facts, and I will feel the feelings. You do not need to tell me the feelings that I'm supposed to be feeling. And Warhammer loves to tell you how dark and scary and depressing, and you're just a mindless cog in a giant machine. You might as well just kill yourself before reading. You know, it's just this kind of, okay. They constantly tell you this stuff without, all they've got to do is show you this stuff. They don't even have to say the guy cut the other guy in half with his sword. They don't even have to describe the battles. And a good kind of example of something that I could show you that is a very exciting, according to the fandom, a very high quality piece of content is in Star Trek The Next Generation, an episode called The Measure of a Man. I believe that's The Measure of a Man. It's about Data, who is an android, discussing if he's sentient, if he's allowed to make his own decisions, if he's an individual. And guess what? This is how a lot of Star Trek Next Generation was, which is why it was so good, is there is not a single bit of combat or fighting in the entire episode. 45-minute, almost an hour, whatever it is episode. There's no discussion of that. It's a court drama, that episode. But what's so good about it is you feel excitement based on what they're discussing. They're not telling you, you should be excited now, here's a gun, and here I'm going to punch him and stuff. There is just, you're on the edge of your seat with these ideas, and the way that the writing and the acting was done so well, especially Captain Picard, between Captain Picard and Guinan, how she surprises him with her point of view. There is an interplay there that you just don't get as much in modern stuff. You do get it, of course, in some, but you have to look for it more. Nowadays, they like showing you, or in some cases in Warhammer, telling you how you should be feeling. Just put it on the screen or on the page. Don't give me any indication about what I should be feeling or why I should be scared or why chaos is so scary is because they have horns on their head. Just put it on the page and let me feel it. But what they ended up doing was going from 2000 AD, Judge Dredd style, even Space Marines were maniacs. The artwork was hand-drawn. It wasn't digital, which is nothing wrong with that, but I'm just saying that there's a different stylistic choice back then. There was not much like that at that time, so the artists were given free reign. Now, I guarantee it at Games Workshop, just like at Disney or any other major corporation that releases products like this, lore, books, movies, whatever, there is a PDF that tells them stylistically how far they should go. If it's a Space Marine, he has to look this way or that way. If it's you discussed an Emperor, you've got to have this, that. You have to have 6 thou or thuses in each book. They have to sound like larpers. They have to sound like in the early 2000s, there was a lot of fantasy movies. They probably started somewhere like Brad Pitt after Lord of the Rings did really well. And they all did the same. They talk like Space Marines talk now. Thou, thus, I read poetry, and can we please have a discussion about, philosophy? Yet they never actually have philosophical discussions. It's really, really cringy stuff. If you met a Space Marine now, as they are illustrated or described now in Games Workshop lore, if you met one now, you'd be like, that dude is such a dork. It's like Elon Musk kind of level edgelord. Naming everything X and his naming his kid a serial number. It's just real edgy. It's like cringy, cheesy stuff. I still read them because, like a pulp novel, you don't take it seriously. You ingest it, you have fun. The closest I come to taking it seriously would be with a Titan, a space battle or something like that. So for me, what the fix would be is to possibly get authors who have not written this kind of content before. I know. You have to have, don't make, Space Marines woke or anything. I understand all that people say, which is absolutely ridiculous, but okay. But you need to approach the lore. I would like to see them approach the lore, the world, the galaxy of Warhammer 40K. I don't do fantasy, so I can't speak on that, differently. And that is to, instead of describing chaos as evil, which, by saying they have horns and they have a crab for a hand or crab claw for a hand or whatever, why not describe, the mysteriousness of chaos, the unknown of chaos? We know so much about chaos. Chaos is literally probably the least scary faction of all of Warhammer 40K. I'd say the scariest faction, if it's even a faction, might be the Mechanicum or something, who are slave to machines. For me, that's the fear I have of AI. It's absolutely dehumanizing and gross, right? And they don't even describe Mechanicum, Mechanicus, or whatever you call them, the Mars people, as relying on AI. In fact, they don't like AI. But to me, that worshiping of technology is the grossest thing there is. But we're supposed to think chaos is a scary faction, and chaos is the one that chaos, scary to a human, not, I should say for a lot of humans, not everybody. I don't know everybody particularly, but what's really scary to me is not a guy with horns. He's like, I'm evil. It's a guy who's mysterious. If I saw a guy walking up and down the street in a costume, I'd be like, he's just kind of a goofy guy. But if I saw a guy sneaking around looking into my window or just standing over there. Here in town, we have a person who, unfortunately, I think is, he's not all there and he needs help. He stands on a corner, a little off the corner, but looking for hours and hours and hours. Now, I haven't seen him in several weeks, so maybe he doesn't do it anymore, but he'll just stare into this one particular window of a restaurant. And the restaurant is not a nice restaurant, but it's like a nice burger joint. It's not like a fancy place, but he just stares into that one window. Now, that's not scary to me like a harm type thing, but what makes it scarier or unsettling to me is the unknown. Is he okay? Is he lost in a world that to make you do that, you probably have some seriously kind of unfortunate things going on in your life. That to me is very, very scary, along with this cat that's about to kill me. So I wish they would try to approach the lore, a little bit differently. They're constantly describing the dread of having a godlike creature rule the universe and having this oppressing religion of the worship of this guy, but they don't need to go that literal with it. They could just kind of show the effects a little bit, the way that people have no creativity anymore. Instead, they're always just talking about how people are starving and they live in a hive city. It's too factual. It's not surrealistic enough. There's no actual chaos in the Warhammer universe of lore. I wish they would go a bit more with the unknown. I wish they'd approach it with a little more creativity. But what I feel like they've done is they've created a stamp that needs to be used on every product they have, a stylistic stamp. If he's a Space Marine, he has to have a shaved head and 3 things, and he has to speak really gruffly. That's cool. I understand the physicalness of his body might do that, but the Games Workshop themselves has shown how much variation there can be, not only in Space Marines who are demigods, but in the actual Primarchs. After all, some of them fell to chaos. If they're literal godlike beings, and what hope does anybody below them have? There's no. It seems to be getting worse as I've tried to read more modern novels, more recent novels, that instead they've relegated Space Marines and most people to speak all the same way, and it's mind-numbing. It's like going to McDonald's. I understand they want every experience to be the same, but that's mind-numbingly boring. So I'm sorry to say, but nothing against the writers. I'm sure they're told how to kind of keep it within a certain thing, and there are some fantastic writers. But let's get back to that 90s or late 80s era of madness, of unpredictability. That's what I want. That's not me hemming and hawing about an old man like shouting at the clouds. That's saying that worked back then because we were all operating under the same idea that we have no idea what this is. What is this drawing of a guy with a space needle thing? Just really weird stuff. I want to get back to that. So bring back the chaos to Warhammer, bring back the unpredictability, the surrealism, the madness, and I'll probably raise it up a notch in importance in the greater landscape of lore. So anyway, have a good day, everybody. Talk to you later. Bye.